We want to identify every person who's a carrier.
Shows that the lifestyle of some
bathhouses frequented by homosexual men. The House
Bobby
already has
Campbell of
voted
San Francisco and Billy Walker of New York both suffered from mysterious...
Hudson's battle against AIDS came to an end about 9 in the morning.
Proposals to find and segregate
heterosexual men and
HIV
women.
virus that I have attained.
Ryan White attracted nationwide attention and sympathy. Here's James.
It is our duty to protect these people from infection if we are forced to. The AIDS virus has no civil rights.
It was our last conversation. I didn't know it at the time. Nothing was left unsaid. I told him that I loved him and would greatly miss him. Then he turned and looked me in the eyes and said those words to me, those words forever burned in my soul. Listen to your heart. That was his final wish. So simple, yet profound. So obvious, but so incredibly difficult to achieve. We kissed, and I walked out of the room. I made a promise to myself that day. One day, I would tell the story of my brother's remarkable life and even more remarkable death. I didn't know how, or when, or in what form the story would take, but I knew for certain that one day I would do it. I had no choice. It had to be told.
This whole I wanted them to go slow.
I know, that's what people say, yeah.
People needed to remind me.
What do you think of Dad tonight?
This third time. This is the third time we've seen it. The best time. The best.
We're in Endicott, New York, my hometown. That's Brian, my director, in the middle. Henry, technical director. And there's Beth, our stage manager. We've come all the way from Tacoma, Washington, to the Cider Mill Playhouse, a regional theater where my brother David performed many times. That's David, playing Alan Strang in Equus on this very stage. David went on to perform on stages all over the world, including Broadway. We're here to finally fulfill that promise I made 20 years ago. This is the story of how it all came to pass.
I'm sitting on a bucket of lentils in a food co-op in Tacoma, Washington. It's 1980, and I'm recovering from a near-death experience with peanut butter. I almost choked on a glob of peanut butter I'd scooped out of the bottom of a bucket I was cleaning. It got stuck in my throat, really stuck. And as I'm sitting there trying to pull myself back together, a young woman, also volunteering at the co-op, comes over to me and asks if I'm okay. And I assure her that I'll be fine, and we start to chat. The usual things. And I happen to mention that I recently moved to the Northwest from the East Coast. And she said that she was from the East Coast too. And I said, well, I'm from a little town called Endwell, outside of Binghamton, in the southern tier of upstate New York. She said, Binghamton. I know Binghamton. I went to SUNY Binghamton for a short while, and my twin brother, Jim, still goes to college there. He's a theater major. I said, really? Well, my brother goes there too, and he's in the theater department. I bet they know each other. And then she pauses. What did you say that town was you were from again? Endwell. E-N-D-W-E-L-L. Endwell. Endwell. I remember Jim telling me that not long ago he went to his boyfriend's parents' house in Endwell, across the river from SUNY Binghamton. Well, Endwell is across the river, yeah. And then she pauses again, thinking. I remember his name. David. David Serko. And by the way, you've got some peanut butter on your chin. Well, it was a good thing I was still sitting. I didn't know my brother was gay. And she's all excited now. And she goes on to tell me that David is Jim's first gay lover. I thought, oh, great. Lovers. I wasn't horrified by the news. Just surprised. Surprised I hadn't figured it out. But then I got to thinking, what better place to find out your brother is gay than amongst all the wholesome fruits and vegetables at the co-op? So later that night, when my wife Sue got home, I said, hey, honey, I learned the most interesting news working at the co-op today. She said, well, what is it? I found out my brother David is gay. And she starts to laugh. She said, yeah, so what? Well, of course, so what? I don't care. But I didn't know. She said, what do you mean you didn't know? I've known for years.
I love looking at these old family movies. That's me holding David. I came from a close family. There are 4 of us kids. I'm the oldest. Then there's my sister Shirley, 4 years younger, David, 6 years, and Jeff, 9 years. Every Sunday, we go to church together as a family, and we'd often come home and pose for a photo, and apparently movies, dressed in our Sunday finest. And as you can see, there's a big difference between David and me. Because of our age difference, we moved in separate worlds. When I left home to go to college at age 18, David was 12 years old, in 6th grade. After that, I was basically out of the picture. We spent the next 20 years living apart on separate coasts. Him in New York City pursuing his acting and dancing career, and me 3,000 miles away in the Pacific Northwest. As the 20th anniversary of David's death approached in 2012, I thought, if I'm ever going to fulfill that promise I made, now's the time to do it. And so I started the David Serko Project. My goal was to discover details about my brother's life, the things I missed in those years we spent apart. I wanted to find people who knew him. I wanted to hear their stories. It began with a website at davidserko.com. Then I created the David Serko Project Facebook page. With just a handful of names, I began looking for them on Facebook. Eventually, I found over 100 people who knew him. Many shared stories and memories of David. One thing was clear, David was loved and adored by all who knew him. And for many, David was still an important presence in their lives to this day.
Watch your back, watch your back.
David's someplace in this crowd. I found this video on YouTube. It's a protest in New York City at Trinity Church at the foot of Wall Street, March 24th, 1988. It was staged by a group known as ACT UP, AIDS Coalition to Unleash Power. I knew David was at this protest because I had seen this photo on Facebook. That's David sitting on the left with a pink triangle on his shirt and both arms in the air. Make a mental note of that green jacket in the corner. I knew David had been involved with ACT UP and was even arrested at one point, but I didn't know any details. Interested in knowing more about ACT UP, I found a Wikipedia article about the group. When I finished reading the article, I noticed a footnote link. 1988 ACT UP Wall Street Demonstration Photo Gallery. That was the protest David was at. took me to a website with a gallery of photos from the protest. One by one, I began looking through the photos, hoping to find David. I saw this one, very similar to the one I found on Facebook. Then this one, David being hauled off by the New York City police. This photo changed everything. It says so much about him. It brought a focus and a renewed sense of mission. There was nothing that could stop me. Just a couple of months after finding that photo, I'm in New York City at an ACT UP protest. ACT UP was still together, working on the issues of AIDS 25 years later. It was a march down to Wall Street. We would go to the place where David was arrested. It was an amazing adventure. I'm being advised by a fellow protester to stay on the sidewalk away from the police. I gladly comply. My brother Jeff and his son Jason are along with me. That's Jeff in the denim jacket and Jason, the young man with the beard and cap. Jason works as a union organizer. Jason was 6 years old when David died.
I was in Toledo, Ohio, running a training with like incredible rank and file worker leaders from all over the country, from like Las Vegas, and all these women from Mississippi who were like African American women who organized the union in Mississippi, and folks from Atlantic City, and we're all going around and telling like who our heroes are in this room. And people had actually just walked across the bridge in Selma from Bloody Sunday and talked about how powerful that was for them and how much that motivated them. And like that morning, I like went on Facebook and I saw the picture of my Uncle David getting hauled off by the cops on Wall Street in '88. And it was just so powerful. And it was the first thing I saw that morning. I was just like crying in my room, and then I like get in this room and I tell this story about like seeing him.
I could hardly believe what I just heard. I could barely hold the camera still. Jason called David his hero. Now another generation would be inspired by what my brother and his friends did. It was that photograph. Along with us is Ron Goldberg, a college friend of David's and a fellow ACT UP alum. Ron was a leader in the ACT UP movement in the early years. Ron even leads a few cheers for old time's sake. I hadn't seen Ron since David's funeral almost 20 years ago. I contacted him through Facebook and asked for his help. I mentioned the arrest photo and asked if he would come with me to an upcoming ACT UP protest. We arrive at Trinity Church and raise the David Serko Project banner. We met many of David's former ACT UP comrades. One spotted our banner and came over to us.
We're involved in the same affinity group called Wave 2. If you see the group pictures, I'm kind of like alongside him. We were arrested and we were brought to the first precinct, and it was interesting because it was a nice, well, among the other people too, but David was a wonderful person to spend an afternoon in jail with, because they were going to keep us in the system, and there were a number of people that were arrested that could had influence. So Koch decided around the afternoon to let us all go.
Once again, out of the blue, that photo leads to a new discovery. Turns out, there was a photo of John being hauled off by the police on that website too.
But David was a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful man.
A few hours later, over lunch, Ron opens up about that day, back in 1988.
That there was still only one drug, AZT, that was cost too much. There was still no leadership on AIDS. Nothing had changed except really ACT UP. We'd gotten bigger, we'd gotten stronger, and we got more powerful. So the idea was we would go back to where our first demonstration was, which was Wall Street, which was actually where we were today. Not Wall Street itself, but in front of Trinity Church at the foot of Wall Street. And we were going to have this huge CD. The first demonstration was 17 people got arrested. And this year, we decided we would do 4 waves of arrests. We trained over 100 people to do nonviolent civil disobedience. And we, and those groups then broke up into 4, we called it 4 waves. First wave, after about an hour of demonstrating, yelling and screaming in circles, it was like 7 o'clock in the morning, you know, people are getting out of the subways and like, what the hell is going on? We had our first wave went into the street to block traffic. Everyone started screaming and yelling and banging on signs and air horns probably, and great echo in that part of town. And the police, you know, weighed in, and the cops and the press are swarming around. Everyone's getting photos, and nothing's really happening. The police finally, after about 10-15 minutes, go, okay, we're going to arrest you. So they go and they pick up people and they drag them to the waiting bus and the police bus, and you know, everyone's on board, wipe their hands, they all get on the bus. At which point, the second wave of demonstrators goes out and blocks traffic, blocks the bus, and that's actually the wave that David was in. And so the police get off the bus, and they're pretty pissed at this point, and they start arresting people a little bit more roughly.
The night before the protest at dinner, Ron mentioned rather matter-of-factly in our conversation that I was the first person David told he was HIV positive. I didn't know that. Ron kept right on talking, and I was suddenly transported back to that phone call from David. Picturing myself pacing in the kitchen, the shortness of breath, the inability to find words. If not for that photograph, I would not have been in New York City for the ACT UP protest. I wouldn't have heard that story from my nephew, met John Nally, the man arrested with David, heard the details of that day back in 1988 from Ron, and this, perhaps the most important and meaningful discoveries of the entire project. It's July 2014, and I'm in New York City a few days before the Cytomel performance. I'm at Trinity Church, waiting to meet Clay Walker, the man who took that photo of David. Clay is a professional filmmaker and photographer living in Atlanta. He's coming to the Cytomel show. Remember that green jacket? That's Clay's elbow. He was wearing a green jacket that day back in 1988. David and Clay are in the same photograph. We're trying to locate the spot where the photo was taken. Clay checks the photo on his phone, looking for landmarks. This is not the first time Clay and I have gotten together. After I found the photo back in 2012, I sent Clay an email telling him about the project and asking if I could use the photo. He was in Seattle on business some months later, so we got together for dinner. He told me all about that day and how important that photo is to him now.
You can photograph something and walk away with a couple of really good photos that you're just really like, wow, I really got that moment. But with this event, it was like every one of the images was so significant, right, that the idea, you know, of trying to preserve them seemed very important to me. So with each one of those images, I scanned them. I did like these 30-minute long scans and then went through and just corrected every little dust particle, you know. And I wanted ACT UP to have them. For years, I had like sent them emails and so finally, I guess it was when Wikipedia finally had an ACT UP page, I was able to post the images on my own website on kind of a private link and then add it to the Wikipedia page so that it would be there. And I think that's how you discovered
That's how
them.
I can't tell you how remarkable that moment when I was like...
I go on to tell him how important his photo is to me personally, and how important it is to the project and all the incredible things that have happened as a result of finding it.
Footnote there with your thing in it, and so I'm just clicking through this and not expecting to see anything.
You could see in his face how surprised he is to hear this, how gratified he must feel. Think about it. 25 years ago, he was 20 years old, working a part-time job, covering a protest he knew nothing about. And now here he is in front of the man whose brother he had photographed back in 1988.
That I really didn't, I knew all about, but I didn't know that it painted it so clearly to me.
Yeah, and I remember, like, you emailed me, and I remember reading it to my wife. I was like, it was so emotional, I couldn't read it to her. I handed it, I think it was on my phone or my laptop. I was like, here, you've got to read this, because I couldn't even read it to you. It was one of the, you know, it's probably one of the best photos I've ever taken, just because, I mean, there was so much, just because of the importance.
This photo and others were taken by a 20-year-old community college student working for a small New York newspaper. His name is Clay Walker. He's sitting right there.
That's not in the script. I spotted Clay sitting in front of me taking photographs. Our eyes met for an instant, and we both realized what was happening at that moment. He was taking photos of me, while I was talking about him taking photos of David.
Then he edited the Wikipedia article, creating the footnote link. There they waited for me to find them. Pretty depressed. I know what we're going to do tonight. We're going to go up to
We're on our way to the last rehearsal at the cider mill. Clay is riding in the back seat, staying at my parents' house. We're going to go to the cemetery to see my brother's grave, but first, we're going to my parents' house for a picnic.
Photo on your Facebook, I just wasn't sure where it was.
Yeah, it's very close by. I mean, I walk there all the time. Yeah. So do you.
We're in the backyard. That's my dad. There's my mom.
Oh, it's right there, kind of on my ankle.
Henry's showing her the tattoo on his ankle. There's Clay, my sister Shirley and her husband Kurt. There's Brian and Beth, and two of my kids, Michael and Alice. After the picnic, we take a short drive to St. Mary's Cemetery where David is buried. I often walk there when I'm back home. It's a beautiful gravestone with a skyline of New York City. I think everybody is moved by the experience. After all, they've been hearing about this man for months now. Now here they are, standing at the foot of his grave. This is David's notes for Chorus Line. So he danced in the swing, I think they would call it. He was an understudy for 3 roles, and so he had to know 3 roles in the show, and so these are his notes about. Over time, I began to amass all sorts of memorabilia. Some things I found at my parents' house. Some people would send me. No matter how large or small, each item filled in more detail about my brother's life.
All these are all the best, some of the best ones. The ones of from Pajama Game doing Steam Heat, David Mangrino, Joanne Bortz, and David. And Joanne is on Broadway now in Once. As we got started in the project, I began to look for whatever I could find of my brothers. You recognize this, of course, if you're old enough. This is David's report card from 3rd grade. I found it in a bunch of his things at my parents' house. And it's clear from looking at it that David was an average student. There's some B's and C's and some S's. But in one subject, he got all D's. D's every single marking period. He got a D in a subject called Citizenship Education. What the heck is that? I don't remember it. Do you? And why? Why all D's? You got to work at that to get all D's. Did he not stand for the Pledge of Allegiance or something? What could it be? It was 1969, after all. That little rebel.
I found that report card at my parents' house. When I saw the 4 Ds, I knew instantly what I was going to do with it and how I would link it to the Clay Walker photograph.
This report card again? In his late 20s and early 30s, David and his friends were laying it all on the line, protesting in the streets, doing something we all know now, helped to save millions of lives. That's what ACT UP did. David was doing what is the civic duty and right of all citizens. He spoke up. He made his voice heard. He worked to bring about change. But somehow, back in 3rd grade, he got all D's in citizenship education. I'd give him an A+.
I'm often asked, how the heck did you do this? How did you find the courage to get up on stage and tell such a personal story? My pat answer? I couldn't not do it. It was as if I was being driven by an invisible force. I've never felt so certain about anything in my life. In 2012, I began to meet with Brian Desmond, who would eventually become my director. We'd been looking to collaborate on a project, and in one of our meetings, I mentioned wanting to write something about my brother. As I began to tell stories to Brian, I realized I had stories to tell. I also discovered I was telling more than my brother's story. It was my story, too. David's death was a life-changing experience that took me 20 years to make sense of. The play would be the culmination of my journey, and in many ways, the fulfillment of his final wish. 6 months later, I had a semblance of a script together. Not a finished script by any means, but a good start. I decided to call it My Brother Kissed Mark Zuckerberg, which seemed appropriate given the fact that much of what I had learned and used in the script came from what I discovered on Facebook. I was home visiting my parents in the summer of 2013, and even though the script was not quite finished, I decided to visit the cider mill and pitch the idea of performing the show to them. We went back and forth for a couple of months, finally deciding on July 19th, 2014. I was thrilled. After the first of the year in 2014, we booked a couple of performances at Duke's Bay Theater in Tacoma, Washington. Since I'd never performed before, I wanted to get a couple of performances under my belt before the cider mill show.
Okay, to answer this question, images are up there the whole time, or not?
We start rehearsals and began to try to figure out how to stage this thing. Brian is an experienced director, has even done some solo performance work, but it takes him a while to adjust to working with me. All this is new. Memorizing the 90-minute script was relatively easy compared with remembering the blocking. The show is media intensive, with still images and movies throughout.
I believe so.
Okay, great.
I believe so.
Okay, so I'll get the wires all hooked up and we'll...
Because we can still tilt it up a little bit. That gives us our adjustment.
Sure.
And if it's not, I have 2 more 2x4s we can put in there.
The set is all built. It replicates the end of the hallway in the 7th floor AIDS ward in Lenox Hill Hospital in New York City, where David stayed many times during the course of his illness. We designed the set with a cider mill in mind. It breaks down into small pieces so we can grate it up and ship it 3,000 miles to the cider mill. It's showtime. I'm surprisingly calm. I wasn't nervous at all. My wife, Sue, was a nervous wreck.
I guess you're supposed to sit when you're in a dressing room, you know? Like, the mirror's not made for me.
That's right.
That
would be a good idea.
Yeah, I have to bend down.
My family arrives. Our kids all knew David, although they were very young. Lauren was 10, Alice 8, and Michael 4. They have no idea what this is about. Neither does my wife, Sue.
Really hard to get to this point. I was so impressed.
Brian gives me a last-minute pep talk.
A new level.
Always teaching, always coaching. I couldn't have done this without him.
That should make you feel great. You've worked hard as a writer and as a performer. You've learned a lot about theater.
Tim's friend, John, greets us and innocently asks,
What a surreal experience walking on that stage for the first time. For the past 2 years, I'd been immersing myself in my brother's life. The theater was his passion, his life. Now here I was, doing the very same thing.
In October of 1992, just 1 month before David died, I composed a 3-page letter to him, typed it on my K-Pro 2 computer. In that letter, I said things I just found difficult to talk with him about in person. I don't know why. It's just me. I never sent that letter. He never read those words. This is some of what I had to say in the letter, and wished I could say now. I've never been one to write. Come to think of it, neither have you. That's how my letter starts. Speaking in measured tones, thinking I had more time, wishing it was sent. This letter is my best try. If only we could be like the angels, voices ethereal, out beyond mere words, speaking things unimaginable. It's important to me, but difficult to conceive, let alone say. Me at your side when the time comes. Your last breath, so precious. So let's walk and talk like the angels, speaking things so carefree. Life lived unmeasured. Goodbyes now, of no significance. Remembering fondly, even these days. I'm half asleep in the waiting room chair. I can hear Ralph and Norton bickering in black and white on the TV. Tim is stretched out awkwardly over 2 chairs, a blanket draped over his head. My dad appears in the doorway. Quick, I think this is it, he shouts, that disappeared. We stagger to our feet and dash down the hallway, bursting through the double doors into his room. I sit on the side of the bed next to my mother, who's holding his hand. The spastic breathing of the long night, displaced now by what must certainly be death rattle. Without thinking, I reach out my hand and lay it on his chest, over his heart. A last gasp. His chest rises and falls. My hand following, sinking, as breath passes his lips. A heartbeat, barely felt. His body deflates under my hand. A smile comes to his face. His hands lift from Eddie's and my mother's hands. We cheer him on. I feel the warmth of life depart in an instant. A startling cold. How fragile and fleeting the line between life and death. The warmth of who we are, what we are, sustained by our beating heart.
How unlikely and a little bit crazy has been this remarkable adventure. Standing now on the stage my brother performed on, in front of an audience of people who knew and loved him. And with them, a man who for some reason knew a photograph he took 26 years ago was important.
All a part of this story in some strange way, and it's totally freaking me out to be here thinking, I'm sleeping in this house 2 nights in a row, the parents of a man who died 20 years ago who I photographed 26 years ago. I mean, it's just such a strange idea, but at the same time it feels completely comfortable, and of course I would be here.
hands.